I want to welcome you to the Retro Rogues Live. Please pay attention to our warning graphic. It states that the Retro Rogues Live... already flubbing. The Retro Rogues Live show is intended for an adult audience and not intended for children under the age of 13. Parental discretion is advised. So on tonight's show, if you're not listening to President Biden talk or you're not listening to Dennis Murin being interviewed, and for some reason, if you find yourself here on tonight's show, we're going to be talking about the final episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We're also going to be talking about the series just in general. Also, we're going to be, as usual, talking about collectibles and the Collector's Corner. And we got some show news, actually, in relation to the Retro Rogues Live show here. And also we'll be covering pop culture news and streaming wars, as always. My name is Dave Beatty. I'm one of your hosts. For the last 30 years, I've been a professional illustrator and graphic designer. I've worked on a lot of fun properties, such as Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes, Batman Incorporated, and Justice League of America. But enough about that. I want to welcome back my co-host. This is Mr. Eric Alexander. Eric, please tell the folks, hopefully watching or listening at home, some of the fun things you have worked on as a creative professional.
Yes, my name is Eric Alexander, also known as Bass God 14. That's Bass God 14, not Bass God. That's Bass God, like a bass guitar. And in addition to my co-hosting duties on the Retro Rogues Live, I'm the chief financial officer of a small production company called Bad Bob Productions. And we recently actually got our animated logo going for what will hopefully be put on all of our films. So I thought I would just share that really quick. It's really quick, so I'm just going to share it with all of you. And that's it. And so hopefully we'll be putting that on pretty much everything, because that is officially Bad Bob Productions is one of the co-sponsors of the show, along with Dave's company, Kirby Tees.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I think we should just do Falcon Winter Soldier and get it out of the way. And then we could do kind of our show notes for the show. Does that work for you? And then we'll do Collector's Corner after that.
That works for me.
Okay. All right. So here on the front of the show, we're going to be talking about the last episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We'll also be talking about the show just in general. Initially staying spoiler-free at the beginning while we talk about our initial impressions. And then after that, we will warn you when we get into the spoiler talk. Then it's going to be a free-for-all. We encourage those of you hopefully watching or listening, please comment. Basically post a little comment from wherever you are, whether it's Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, it doesn't matter. We will put it up here on the show and have your voice from the Rogues Gallery added to our conversation. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start, if that's okay, Eric.
Yeah, that's fine.
Here's and I'm going to be honest with you. I wasn't going to be as heavy-handed as I'm going to be now, because there was a news item that broke that I read today that really kind of riled me up. So I'm not going to be as nice as I was originally going to be. I'm probably going to be a little mean to the show tonight. So my official review of this episode in this series in total, if you're a fan of The Price is Right, kind of goes like this. Da, 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 da. So there you go. That's how I feel about this show. That's it. In its totality, when we get into spoiler talk, I'm going to talk about the things that really kind of just drive me nuts and why I am actually considering sitting out Loki. All right, over to you, Eric.
Yeah, I think we're definitely kind of in the same ballpark as far as our feelings about this show overall, and particularly the finale. I do want to acknowledge my partner, Robert McVeigh. He's in the house. He says, "What up, big dogs?" Robert, you're the big dog. We all know that. I hope you saw that I just put the logo out there and all that kind of stuff, that I just showed our new animation that's going to be going on all of our stuff. So, and actually there is a Bad Bob Productions YouTube now too. It actually has a music video on it called Beach Blonde Bimbo. So something for people to check out there as well. But yeah, this episode, I'm just kind of glad it's over. I'm just kind of glad I don't have to watch the show anymore, because I don't know. You know, the thing is, I think we say this quite a bit, and it's worth saying in the context of this show as well. It's worth saying this. There was a lot of potential there's a lot of potential in the premises that they have in this show. But it's all about execution. The problem is the execution. And the problem is one of the criticisms I've heard, and actually I heard Gary from Nerdrotic talking about this, is that everybody thinks, for some reason, people have been thinking that these shows are going to mean something, that they have some bigger meaning in terms of the MCU, right? I think I just lost Dave, so I'll keep tap dancing because I think we lost Dave there. But we keep thinking, and Dave's back. We lost you there for a second, Dave.
Yeah, I don't know what was up with that. Just all of a sudden, just everything just stopped. It was really weird.
Yeah, I guess the NSA is probably upset about competition with the president, huh? Anyway,
I guess. Hey, just real quick, YouTube, Facebook, police, whoever, we're not going to be talking about Biden at all tonight. So you can all just relax. We're talking about silly superhero stuff. Just chill, everybody.
Well, along those lines, I wish we were talking about just silly superhero stuff. That's one of the problems with this show. One of the problems with this show is it is overly political. There's just no doubt about it. And there are many times. Look at the title of the episode. The one world, one people. Okay. The what do they call the Flag Smashers? Right. That's the name of the group.
Yes.
Flag Smashers.
Flag Smashers.
The Flag Smashers. I've maintained from the beginning remind me way too much of Antifa. Way too much. It's way too close to home, in my opinion. Okay. And it takes me out of the MCU and it puts me back in my world and the things that, I'm trying to deal with and trying to process, stuff that I don't want to be thinking about while I'm watching Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And the title right there, it just sums up that whole feeling and the whole problem. One world, one people, right? That's their slogan, right? Because, they're no borders, right? That's literally a chant from Antifa. Literally, that's like a chant from Antifa. Not exactly the same phrase, but exactly the same sentiment. Okay. And so that kind of stuff, it takes me out of that world and puts me back in my world. And that's not what I go to a Marvel movie for. Okay. And I want to be clear. I'm not saying you can't be political. I'm not saying that Marvel's never been political. Captain America is a very good example of a inherently political character, right? Because Captain America was devised to literally beat up Hitler, right? That's the iconic image of Captain America, is punching Hitler in the face. And so the whole idea of Captain America was he was meant to embody the American military, and he was meant to be like our secret weapon against Nazism, against fascism. Okay. That's exactly what Captain America was supposed to be. There's no denying that. But we're talking about a very extreme circumstance, one where really you kind of had to take a side one way or the other. We're talking about World War II, okay? Comparing World War II to what's going on right now and the way things are polarized now and why they're polarized the way they are and blah, 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 blah. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. We are not in that same kind of world. It is very disingenuous. And it's really kind of funny because even in the context of the show, they say that. There's actually a message somewhere in here where they basically do kind of acknowledge that things are complicated, and maybe you should be looking at both sides of an issue, right? There was a little of that in this episode. That was actually something that was brought up, but it's kind of funny to see that's not what they're practicing in terms of the writing of the show. To me, the writing in this show is definitely very skewed one way. It is not about looking at the other side and coming up with a sort of what's the word that I'm looking for, and coming up with sort of a more encompassing view that's going to include both sides. Okay, to me that's not what this show is about. So Robert had a question. He said he had a question for you. He said a question to Dave. and I don't see what the question was. He did say a question earlier: is there another Batman movie coming back? Robert, actually, we have talked about that on previous episodes. There is The Batman, which is supposed to be coming out. Who knows when, because it has all sorts of delays due to the pandemic. And then, of course, there's also The Flash, which is supposed to feature not just a Batman, but Batmen. So it's supposed to have Michael Keaton in it and Ben Affleck as Batman. So that's sort of the multiverse concept. So a little bit off topic, but more than happy to address what you have to say, Robert.
Yes, yeah. Eric is correct. You are correct, sir. Yeah, so all I got to say about this show, I have to say we'll get into the spoiler talk, because I want to start off with this news article that I read at lunchtime today, and then get into it, because it's so funny, because the news article is what set me off. That's the irony. That's what really upset me, because it makes me feel like I wasted my time watching this show. And I feel like that the MCU has a bigger problem with Sam Wilson being Captain America than I do. It's gonna put that out there, because I felt like that and then I feel like we're getting into spoiler talk already, but you guys can see the graphic. Give me a break. You know where we're going with this. I feel like, in all honesty, that when Steve handed Sam the shield, we knew it was coming. It's not a huge shock, right? And one of the things that, well, we got to wait for the spoiler talk. I don't want to. Yeah.
Well, I think if anybody, if you haven't seen Endgame, I don't know why you would be watching Falcon and the Winter Soldier, right?
Right.
It's almost impossible to imagine why you would be interested in Falcon and Winter Soldier if you didn't bother to watch Endgame, right?
Right.
So, in that sense, I don't think that's really a spoiler. I think everybody anticipated this. Everybody knew this was going to happen. The question to me is why Marvel Studios and Disney felt the need to tell us this story that, in a lot of ways, I feel didn't need to be told. There's just no reason for it to be told. And going back again to what I saw Gary from Nerdrotic talking about, he was agreeing with me, because I've kind of mentioned this about Wanda Vision, and I felt that Falcon and the Winter Soldier was going in the exact same direction. In a lot of ways, I felt ultimately what Wanda Vision was all about was a new look for the Scarlet Witch, and basically new toys, new look, new costume. And in a lot of ways, I feel like that's what this show is too. It's just ultimately all the stuff that happens in it is pretty much meaningless. There are a couple threads there that I think might be relevant later and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, I think the whole point was just to show him in the new costume.
Well, and let me defend WandaVision here for a second, because I feel like WandaVision is actually better than Falcon the Winter Soldier.
I concede that. I think I would probably concede that.
Yeah, because WandaVision is, at the end of the day, it's kind of the origin story for the Scarlet Witch that we didn't get in the movies, and it gives us a lot more context as to Vision and Wanda's relationship, and it has some really great dialogue and some really powerful. It's genuinely powerful, like emotionally powerful. Like, if you buy into Wanda's story, by the time you get to the episode before the finale, like those couple episodes before the finale, that's some powerful stuff. If you are along for the ride, really powerful stuff. And I would say that, in my opinion, the writing for WandaVision is stronger than the writing for Falcon the Winter Soldier, because I feel like, and this is kind of sprinkled around on the internet. You can go out there and do this searching if you want, but there's been a lot of discussion that there was some retooling done on Falcon and Winter Soldier. That's why it was pushed back, because it was supposed to come out first. And I feel like there's a whole subplot that explains what's going on with the Flag Smashers that's just been cut out of this show. And well,
you can say the same thing about WandaVision, though, because there's some very obvious sequences that were cut out of that show. It's very obvious. They've even talked about that. The directors and showrunners have even talked about that.
But I feel like it's weird because I feel like that for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I feel like they had to retool it because they had some maybe poorly timed stuff in it. And then with Wanda Vision, there's stuff missing because all of a sudden it had to come first and it wasn't supposed to come first. Falcon and Winter Soldier is supposed to come first. If you're curious to look into that, just research it on the internet. There's a lot of people talking about it. I don't want to get too far into that, but I'm just going to tell you that there's been conversations about who the worst villains in the Marvel Universe are. Well, here's your answer, everybody. The Flag Smashers. There you go. There's your worst villainous group. There's your worst villains right there. I don't think that's even up for debate anymore. I mean, by the time I was done watching Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I was like going, I have a new appreciation for Iron Man 2 and Thor: The Dark World.
But are they really villains, Dave? Are they really?
Yeah. They told us to look. Let me put it this way: the world was shocked with what John Walker did. And the Flag Smashers killed way more people. Just gonna say that, like if you're actually watching the show, Flag Smashers killed way more people than John Walker did, in the context of the show.
Well, I don't think this is a spoiler because I'm not going to be talking. I'm not talking here about a specific scene necessarily or any specific dialogue. But one of the things that really irritated me about this show was Falcon's general attitude towards the Flag Smashers, and in particular their leader. I hated that. I could not stand that. It made absolutely no sense to me. This whole idea that he's basically very sympathetic to them, and the question in my mind keeps coming up is like, why? Why are you sympathetic to these people exactly? And here's the other part of it. Here's the other part, and this is just bad writing. This is bad writing from somebody that basically has an agenda and doesn't have any concept of even how to advocate for that agenda very well. There is a big difference between the fact that I might agree with you ideologically about something, whatever issue, whatever political issue, right? We could take any issue and say, I'm for this and you're for this, okay? The method by which you accomplish whatever political mission you have, whatever political goal you have, is important. That's extremely, extremely important. I can agree with you 100% that this is where we should be, and hey, you're on the right track. This is right. That doesn't mean I'm going to agree with you or sympathize with you when you start killing a bunch of people, a bunch of innocent people to accomplish your goal. I mean, that may sound crazy. That may sound crazy, but basically, the writers of Falcon and the Winter Soldier are trying to tell you that if you sympathize with this person's cause, then you can excuse all the horrific things that they do. That's basically what they were trying to say. Yeah, and Falcon constantly does that. He constantly does that.
Yeah, it's just one of the. I see something I'm breaking up like it's something wrong with the internet, but I'm just trying to pick my words. It feels to me at the end of the day that they had Falcon the Winter Soldier being so much a commentary politically on what they wanted to talk about that it literally hurt this show.
Yeah.
And I think the evidence is pretty obvious at this point, but I have a feeling that when they took all this stuff out that gave us a better understanding of what was going on with the Flag Smashers, and what they were trying to achieve and what their ultimate goal was. I mean, I know what they said it was, but there's weird things like the first or second episode, they're stealing vaccine. Okay. And we never even get a really good explanation for why they're stealing vaccine. Like, it makes absolutely no sense. And then even there towards the end, like when they threw those little, I'm getting into spoilers. Can we just go into spoilers?
Yeah, we can get into spoilers, but I want to acknowledge what Robert says, because in some ways I'm right there with you, Robert. He's just waiting for Gumby and Pokey to come back. So I hear you, Robert. I really do. I totally hear you, because a lot of this stuff, it's like the escapism is gone. It's not fun. It's not fun anymore. So, and he says our show is cool. We appreciate that, Robert. And you're cool, my partner. I appreciate that very much.
Thanks. We appreciate that. And all I'm going to say is be careful what you wish for. We got a pop culture news story item that'll make you question.
That's true. Come being
pokey. Bringing something back.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about the Flintstones later. So yeah, we'll see what's going on there. Yep.
Yeah. All right. So we're now in the spoiler converse part of the show because basically I can't talk about this without getting into spoilers. So we're going to go ahead and get into spoilers. So basically at this point, if you haven't watched Falcon the Winter Soldier, you don't want anything spoiled, now is your time to turn back. Because once you start down this path, forever will it dominate your destiny. All right, so let me go ahead and give you the summary. And I feel like this summary kind of just says it all. The summary for One World, One People is, as the Flag Smashers escalate their efforts, Sam and Bucky take action. That's it, everybody. All right, so let me just get right into it, okay? I have a lot of issues with especially this show. This episode really kind of chapped my butt in a lot of different ways. And and let me explain why. Number one, I like the Captain America suit. It looks very much like the comic book version, so I thought that was kind of fun and kind of cool. So I don't hate on the suit. I think the suit's kind of cool. I felt like they did some fun things with the suit. And here's why it made me mad. Why did we have to wait this long to put him in this suit? Like why? Because Steve hands Sam the shield at the end of Endgame. So we know he's going to become Captain America, right? And I feel like that they wanted to give us Sam's journey to become Captain America. Okay, all right. But still, he could have been in the suit an episode or two sooner, in my opinion. Because I don't feel like that we needed to go this crazy, tortured path to get to this point. And that was
that goes right back to my argument that the whole point of these shows is just to show the new costume. Well, that's why you have to wait until the very end, because that's literally the entire point of the show.
Right. Now I have here, let me get this over here, try and get this over here on my screen. So I have, oh, come on, having some issues here with my machine. I have got a news article I want to read to you all so that you can understand my anger. I'm going to share my screen here if you don't mind, Eric. All right. Now, this is Esquire magazine. Okay? I want you to read this headline. Wyatt Russell says he might not return as John Walker after the Falcon and Winter Soldier. And you can go over here and read this article if you want. This is by Brady Langman. Apologies for not saying that correctly. We're going to scroll past some of this stuff so we don't get in trouble here because they're trying to play us all these videos. But let's see here. There was a specific quote in here. Here it is, right here. This is a repost from an article on Vanity Fair. Russell himself sounds ambivalent about whether John Walker comes back at all. And this is quote, part of the way I approached Marvel was it's all your last time you're going to do it. If this scene with the Contessa is setting up Walker to be something specific, Russell is in the dark about it. It's possible that if fans don't wind up connecting with Walker on any other level, he won't return at all. And that's the thing that drives me nuts is that, part of the way I approached Marvel was anyhow, the point of it being, I'm not sure how to read that the best way, but there
is another part of that quote as I'm reading it. So I think it is important to give the full quote. Because he says Marvel operates in a really cool way where they don't make decisions before they see what works. I'm not part of any of the decision making, obviously. I think he's just trying to kind of hedge his bets.
Right. Well, here's the thing that makes me mad, and this headline was what set me off. Wyatt Russell says he might not return as John Walker after the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Okay. One of my favorite characters that I enjoyed most in this show, just in general, was John John Walker, U.S. agent. Like, that's one of the reasons I was watching this show. Okay. And it feels like that they're definitely trying to set him up. Okay. But here's my problem. Here's the important thing, everybody. If we are not going to pick up where John Walker's story leaves off with him as U.S. agent, like if they really seriously are contemplating not doing that, okay, this is why Falcon and the Winter Soldier is not as good as WandaVision. WandaVision gave us an origin story and led us to the Scarlet Witch name and the costume for Wanda Maximoff. Okay, it's like her superhero origin. She is now the Scarlet Witch. We now fully understand her story. We get a better understanding kind of how her powers work. And we also get the spectral vision, the white vision, whatever you want to call him. We get this new version of Vision, right? We get a new character into the MCU, and now he's running around in the MCU, and we may see him again, right? That's fun, right? Well, the problem with this, whether Wyatt Russell's hedging his bets or not, the reason this upsets me is if we're not actually going to come back and revisit John Walker down the road in some form or fashion, then already it's less than WandaVision. WandaVision just gave us spectral vision, and we get Scarlet Witch. Falcon the Winter Soldier gives us U.S. agent and a new Captain America, right? Well, if it's just giving us a new Captain America, we already knew Bucky was going to be new Captain America anyway, then what is the point of all this? That's my problem.
Bucky's not new Captain America.
Yo, but you see what I'm saying, right? Like, and that's part of the problem too, Eric. Think about this. At the end of the credits, they rebrand it and they say Captain America and the Winter Soldier. You just spent 6 episodes telling us that he's not the Winter Soldier anymore. Are you not going to give him a new name? Call him White Wolf. Like, I liked when he showed up at this episode and they called him Sergeant Barnes and they like parted the way for him to show up, right? I was like, Sergeant Barnes. Why doesn't it say Captain America and Sergeant Barnes? Like, what? If you just spent 6 episodes telling us he's not the Winter Soldier, why at the end are you reiterating he's the Winter Soldier? That doesn't make any sense to me. That and that is my whole problem with this show. I know some people are hoping to see Thunderbolts and all this other stuff, and I told you all, don't get your hopes built up. And by the way, this insanity that makes me so angry at this show is part of the reason we're going to be talking about some stuff happening with the Retro Rogues Live later on this episode, because like, I don't think Eric and I can take this too much more. This stuff is driving me nuts. It's like, you just spent 6 episodes saying he's not the Winter Soldier, and at the end, you take the time to say, well, Sam Wilson is no longer the Falcon. He is now Captain America. Well, who's Bucky? He's still the Winter Soldier. Don't do that. It's annoying. Sorry.
Well, it's like what Robert says. They want your money. That's what it really comes down to, right?
But here's the problem.
It's a cash grab. It's a cash grab. And by the way, here's the other thing that makes it so disingenuous, and why I think Robert's hit the nail on the head too, because at the end of the day, if Walker doesn't return, okay, which I know would really upset you because you're a U.S. agent fan, they did introduce the action figure because he did get his little moment, with the quote unquote new suit. So we're still going to get the action figure, Dave. So, and that should just that should appease you fanboys. That's Marvel Studios' idea. Is like, well, you fanboys should be appeased because we're still going to get the action figure. We showed them, so we know that's coming. We know that's coming.
No, that doesn't work. That doesn't work with me.
I'm telling you, that's what their mentality is. That's what their mentality is.
I am so frustrated with this that I'm telling you right now, I'm probably just going to sit out Loki. I'm just going to sit it out. I like Tom Hiddleston as Loki, but I don't really need to continue Loki's story. And judging by WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I have this feeling these are insular little stories anyway, because here's the other thing that drives me nuts about this episode. When Captain America comes flying in, right? When the Falcon comes flying in his new outfit, which I like the new outfit, by the way. I thought they did some fun stuff with it. But when he comes flying in the new outfit, and he tells Bucky, I called in some backup. And then Sharon Carter shows up. Are you kidding me? Why would you call someone who is literally, as far as you know, dealing arms and artwork on the black market, laying low in Madripoor, that you, as far as you knew, might have even been dead? Why would you call her? Are you telling me that you are now Captain America? You are formerly the Falcon. You are an Avenger. You have Spider-Man on your Rolodex, and you're in New York, and you're going to call Sharon Carter to come over from Asia? Are you kidding me? This is insane.
You know what really
absolutely insane.
You know what really was weird about that is, it seems so obvious to me that War Machine was going to show up.
Yes.
It's like, why was he even in this? Why the fuck was he even in this? Why did the actor even agree to be in this? You know what I mean? Like, what was the point? Basically he does a cameo and we in the first episode, and we never see him again. What the heck is that?
And here's the thing that drives me nuts. You got all these world leaders, right? They're being attacked by a terrorist organization. And you're telling me War Machine can't fly down from Washington, D.C. to help out? Because when Falcon said, I called in backup, I was waiting for Rhodey to show up. That's what I was waiting, because we saw him in the first episode. So, and I'm like going, it only makes sense, man. He's War Machine. He's in Washington, D.C. And then I didn't get my hopes up too high, but I was kind of thinking, it's like, you know what? If Don Cheadle wanted to do this, all he's got to do is either dub some lines, or they might even be able to use stuff they already have on file and then just have the CGI render, right? Like a War Machine, and he just kind of shows up. Maybe he's the one who is enforcing the no-fly zone. Then you don't even expect to see a lot of him. He just kind of zooms in and he says, I'll keep the airways clear for you, Sam. And then he just kind of veers off. Like, he doesn't even, like, that's all it would have taken. That's it. That's it. But that's the thing that drives me nuts. You have established and set up an interconnected world where all these people know each other. And in the Marvel, let me put it this way, the Marvel comics, not only would War Machine would have been there, friggin' Spider-Man would have showed up too. But because it's this, they're nowhere to be seen. That makes no sense to me. You're going to threaten all those world leaders, and you're going to lock down the city, and nobody's going to show up. But a new Captain America that nobody knows about, right? A potentially still wanted criminal in the Winter Soldier. I know they'd want us to believe he's someone else, but at the end they tell us he's the Winter Soldier still. The Winter Soldier, and someone who may or may not be dead, who I already predicted was the Power Broker. We talked about in an earlier episode. And then the Power Broker. And why would Sam trust her? This is the big thing, Eric. Think about this. Why would Sam trust her when they were in Madripoor? What did she do? She killed the person who was giving them the information. She killed him. Like, Sam should really be questioning, one, why are you in Madripoor? Number two, why did you just kill this guy that we were getting information from? I don't care what your explanation is. Let me put it this way. He should have just called Baron Zemo, because at least Zemo, he knew where he stood, and he could probably trust him more than Sharon Carter. And even I knew that.
No, it made no sense to me at all. It made absolutely no sense, other than she's got top billing in the show. You know what I mean? She's part of the images that they use in promotion and things like that. It doesn't make any sense for the story. It doesn't make any sense when you talk about the wider MCU. And that, again, that goes back to that whole argument of what I'm trying to say, which is this isn't what people think it's supposed to be. This isn't supposed to have these great far-ranging implications for the MCU and tying more stuff, into the MCU from the MU, the Marvel universe to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I do want to get back to these comments because they did pile up a little bit. So Gravity Station was checking in from Twitch. Well, we've seen you a couple times before, Gravity Station. Hey, if you have any thoughts on Falcon Winter Soldier, don't hesitate to let us know, Gravity Station. We'd love to hear them. And we love to hear from Twitch, because we don't hear from Twitch very often.
And don't let my crazy ranty tone throw you off from commenting. There was just some things that really bothered me.
Oh, obviously. There's a lot of things that bothered me about this show. There's a lot of things that bother me. Getting back to Lynn's comment. By the way, it is good to see you. Get off my lawn, Marvel. Get off my lawn. I agree, man. But Robert makes a great point. And I love it, because I think he's right. I think he's right when it comes to people that are angry right now and all that stuff, because, man, these corporations are evil and they play the long game. And he says, Robert says, they will wait you out and take your money again later. Laugh out loud. Love you, Dave. And that's exactly what happens is people, it seems like to me, they forget that they do something really stupid, really messed up, really bad. And then, you wait it out and later on it's like, oh, but I want to see this. You know what I mean? I want to see that. And I feel like as fans, we never learn. We just never learn. We keep going back for the punishment. And then it's like, we're upset because we're punished again when it's like, that's what they're doing. That's what it's all about. I mean, just from a very simple writing perspective, just from a simple perspective of who they actually got to be in the show. Why in the world wouldn't you have War Machine? Yeah. Why? And the only reason is agenda, because they decided, well, we need a female character. We don't need another black male character because we already have one. He's like the main guy. This is like the corporate insanity of how these corporations work. And they talk about diversity. It doesn't matter what fits the story. That's the ultimate problem. It doesn't matter what actually fits the story. We've got to have diversity. We've got to have more inclusion or whatever. And for them, all that means is what you look like. It's the most racist, sexist garbage in the world. Instead of using a character that actually fits, we're going to use a character that looks the way we think should look, or has the sex that we think they should have. And that's what we're going to put in there. It's agenda. That's the problem. This thing is full of agenda over substance, over making a coherent story. That's the problem with this show. That's the problem with Disney right now. That's the problem with Marvel Studios right now. They are doing agenda politics over story. And it doesn't make any sense. But it makes sense if you understand the agenda. Then it makes perfect sense to me. Oh, we can't have another black male character because the main character is a black male. We need a white female. There it is. There it is.
And see, the thing that drives me nuts is I was hoping to see War Machine again. I was counting on seeing War Machine again.
So was I. It seems so obvious.
It made the most sense. And when Sam said I called in some backup, that's what I was expecting. So when Sharon Carter showed up, I almost lost my mind. I was like, why in the hell did you call Sharon Carter to come over from Asia? I'm pretty sure she wasn't in the neighborhood. Are you kidding me? And it's just, when you look at the potential of things that they could have done, right? Because it's one episode, and the way that because here's the complaint. The critics look at this stuff and they go, oh, this is fan service. Oh, this is fan service. And that's what makes it trash, right? Like that's what makes this kind of entertainment trash, is because it's nothing but fan service. Okay. Well, let me just tell you right now, this is definitely not fan service. Okay. I mean, to me, from a story standpoint, if you're in New York, all these world leaders are threatened and you need some backup, Spider-Man is who should have showed up. And at the very least, it definitely should have been War Machine. Now, not only is that maybe fan service, but that also kind of makes sense, right? Because Spider-Man's in New York, right? We're in New York. Okay, that makes sense.
No,
War Machine.
But the whole point to me of fan service is actually what they did. Fan service is, oh, well, War Machine's in it. He's in the show. He's in one freaking episode and doesn't do anything. He has a conversation with Falcon. And that's it. That's it.
Well, yeah,
that's what fan service actually is. That's like, oh, see, we had War Machine in it, but he doesn't actually do anything. He's not actually important to the story. He doesn't actually come in at the end at the final battle, which to me was clearly set up. But right. Then what do they do now? What do they do now? Well, we defied your expectations. We defied your expectations. Let's pat ourselves on the back, Hollywood, because we defied that fanboy's expectations. You thought we were going to do this, and we didn't. You thought we were going to do something that made sense? We wouldn't do that. We're not going to do that. Fan service to me is something completely different. To me, it's actually more like what they actually did. You put a character in there so people can go, oh, wow, so-and-so's in this. But then they don't do anything. They're not relevant. It's like Akbar becoming a communications officer in The Force Awakens. That's fan service. That's worthless. That actually defiles Akbar's legacy, because Akbar was supposed to be the admiral of the fleet, and now he's a communications officer. Essentially, he's a radio repairman or something like that, a radio operator. He was nothing in The Force Awakens. That's fan service. And what they did in Falcon and the Winter Service, Falcon and the Winter Service, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, again, that's fan service. Well, War Machine's in here. You want War Machine? He's in it. Well, we didn't put him in the suit or anything like that, and he didn't do anything, but he's in it. That, to me, is fan service. If he had actually showed up and done something relevant for the story that made sense, like, representing maybe the government and their response to this crisis, maybe representing that. No, we couldn't even have that. It's like, and it's again, I say it's because of the agenda. It's because at some point they say, well, are we having enough of this demographic group? Are we having enough of that demographic group? Are we doing, you know what I mean? It's all about how people look, you know what I mean? Color of their skin and what gender they are. That's what Hollywood is all about now. And it's affecting everything that we watch in movies and TV right now, especially when you talk about these big, large corporations. It's just ridiculous, in my opinion. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it makes the story stupid. It makes the story not make any sense. And the other thing is, I think there are things that they wanted to put in this, obviously, like, the fact that Carter is the power broker. That's supposed to be a big reveal. Well, the writers, I can tell you, they're probably sitting there like, well, how do we even get her over there? Right? It's like they're trying to figure out, like, you don't even have to do that. She can just show up, right? She's supposed to be kind of like, this super spy or whatever. She's traveling around. You don't need to do all this other stuff. Falcon doesn't need to call her. She can just show up because she's the bad guy, right? She's the power broker. So she can just show up just like always happens. I mean, that happens. That is a trope, but it's a trope that works. The villain just shows up, at the climax and reveals themselves. It's that simple, You don't have to do all this other stuff. You don't have to overthink it. But you do have to give her more screen time, probably. You know what I mean? That's kind of that's what I feel like the decisions that are being made. They're not for the service the story. They're for other things, that have nothing to do with actually making the story any good or make any sense.
Well, and see, for me, when Sam said I called in some backup, and then when Sharon Carter showed up, originally I thought that Sam was not talking about Sharon Carter. Like, I thought he was talking about someone else. And I only caught on that Sharon Carter was who he called when I rewatched it the second time.
Well, it's laughable. It's laughable.
It's so bad.
It's actually like a joke. Like if you made the connection right away, you would just laugh. It's not until later, because I was the same way. It's not until later you realize, because I was actually sitting there like, well, it can't be her. That doesn't make any sense. It has to be War Machine. War Machine's going to show up, right? No.
Well, I'm going to talk about the things I did like about the episode here real quick. And then I'm going to talk about, and then Eric, if you had anything that you liked. And then after that, I'm going to talk about where I'm at with the MCU right now because of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So, I like Sam's suit. I know some people didn't like it. I like the suit. I thought they did some fun things with it. They had some cool action sequences, which I kept thinking, why didn't we have more of this in this show? But anyhow, that's one of my biggest complaints. Why didn't we put him in the suit faster so we could get to see him being Captain America a little bit more? And why couldn't we have had more fun, action sequences? So there you go. But I like the new suit. Again, I never had any problems with Sam being Captain America in the first place. I don't understand we had to spend so much time dealing with that. We could have done that in that one episode, moved on. But anyhow, I don't have any problems with him being Captain America. I never did. Like I said, when I was a kid growing up, when I read Captain America comic books, it was Captain America and the Falcon. And so it made sense to me that Sam would inherit the shield, especially when you consider the amount of time that we spent with him in the MCU, him and Cap working together. It made sense. So I never had any problems with that. Even though the MCU seems to think I would have. I didn't. Not at all. And along those lines, I liked that they gave John Walker an opportunity to redeem himself. He has a moment where he has to choose between revenge and the greater good and saving some people, and he chose to be a hero. And I like that they showed that. I thought that was really good. I like the fact that he seems like that he by the end of the episode, it looks like he's positioned. You know what I mean? Where he's U.S. agent, and maybe we're going to see him down the road. And then, like I said, I showed you all this news article that I read that maybe I read too much into it, but it made me mad. And all I could think of is like, why would you spend this time setting him up? You should have just killed him then, you know? So that kind of left me in a kind of a weird spot. But I like the fact that we got to see him redeem himself, so that hopefully we will get to see U.S. Agent in the future, and he'll be more of a hero, you know, now that he's not necessarily trying to live up to someone's expectations, but he's just trying to be a hero, right? And then as far as the rest of it goes, I don't know. Wanda Vision was better. Iron Man 2's better. Thor: The Dark World's better. Like that's the problem. That's the problem with this. It's like it reminds me of WandaVision in that it peaked early. You know, that scene where Walker kills that guy, like, wow, that's some powerful stuff. Where do we go from here? Right. And then it just doesn't, the finale doesn't pay off that dramatic setup in my mind. And then on the flip, it's just like WandaVision. There's so much powerful, moving, important, emotional stuff. And then you get to the finale, and the finale's fun, but it just doesn't really, in my mind, pay off the drama and the tension that it set. And this did the same thing. It peaked early. You know what I mean? And the finale just, it's good, but it's just not quite there. And that's kind of it. Like, and you know, I didn't hate the show. But I'll tell you what the ramifications are with me with the MCU, but let's get Eric a chance to chime in. Eric, did you have anything about the show that you liked?
Not really. No. The only thing I liked from this episode was that they did have Zemo get a little bit. They did have Zemo get his last lick in. Zemo was my favorite thing in the show, and I was really upset that they threw him in jail. I thought that was just idiotic. I think a lot of people were really enjoying him. The performance was just spot on. It was a really interesting character. And here's the other thing. Here's the thing, and I've said it before. What I really like is that Zemo has an argument that makes sense in the MCU and doesn't have like an immediate equivalent to our society. You know, Zemo's perspective is very simple. It's that basically the super soldier serum is a bad idea and we shouldn't be using it. That's it. That's his perspective. He does not like these gods among us. He thinks that that's a problem. And he has a very good reason for thinking that, because his family was a victim of that. So he has a problem with these quote unquote gods among us. And it's a perspective that makes a ton of sense. And it also makes sense why Falcon and the Winter Soldier would not agree with them. It makes sense that they would be on opposing sides. You know, it makes sense. So it's like you understand the villains and you understand the heroes because they have valid perspectives. And it's not like this immediate our world equivalent. And it's fun and it's interesting to think about. It's like, hey, you know, because that might happen someday. We might have like, you know, superhumans and super soldiers and things like that. And the ethics of that is interesting to think about. And you're going to have people that have legitimate reasons for it and people that have legitimate reasons against it. What I also think is funny is when it comes to what the flag smashers were supposed to be all about in this particular show, you could have had a really interesting argument there as well. They do touch on it, like really kind of quickly. They touch on it when Falcon is doing his Captain America speech, which I thought was incredibly cheesy and stupid. but they do touch on it a little bit. In fact, that was the one point where I felt the Senator character almost kind of took off his top hat and he took off the mustache, and he stopped twirling the mustache. And he actually said to him, "This is a complicated issue. This is a complicated situation because of all these people that came back after the blip." And it does make sense if you think about it in the context of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There would be repercussions. Like they talk about the fact is, hey, somebody might have bought your home while you were blipped. Now you come back, you want your house back, right? They actually mention this. This would be a very practical problem, right? Very practical. And what they failed to do is they failed to represent the fact that, you know what? There would be ordinary people out there that would be very pissed off when the blip person came back and tried to get their house back. And there would be conflict. In other words, there would be legitimate arguments between these kinds of people. There would be one side and the other. It wouldn't just be all the poor people against the rich people or whatever. No, there would be normal people that would be affected by this. People who had simply bought a house because they thought the owners were dead, right? Because they blipped, they disappeared. Now they come back and they want that house. They touched on that, and that, if they had really gotten into that and really showed the other side, really showed what the conflict is, how it's actually affecting people, that could have been really interesting. But they didn't do any of that. They didn't do any of that. That side is only represented by that senator guy, who is not a sympathetic character, who, again, I've said it, he basically needs a top hat. He needs to twirl his mustache because he's so one-dimensional. And there's no representation of the fact that, yes, there would be normal people saying, we got to do something about this. This is a problem. This is a major, major problem. It wouldn't just be like all again, the way they kind of put it is like somehow it's just like all the normal people are totally great with the flag smashers, and it's just the elites that want to do what they're doing. No, not at all. And it would be a really fascinating in MCU world argument, because it's a unique thing that happened with them, not something that's happened in the real world or ever would. But it is something that happened in the MCU. And you could play with that. You could have fun with that. You could show the different characters and their conflict being motivated by these two different worldviews that are actually legitimate. Because guess what? The blip person wanting their house back, that's legitimate. The person that bought the house afterwards and has been living there for the last 5 years, their argument's pretty legitimate too. That's a legitimate conflict. But the problem is the writing in the show is so juvenile. It's so it's so trite. It's so overused. It's so bad, and it's so agenda driven. You can't get into any of that. You can't get into any of that nuance, any of that fun. It's just not there. It's all just kind of very one-sided. And it's amazing to me. Somebody else brought this up. In a lot of ways, it feels like Falcon is more sympathetic towards the flag smashers, who, as you mentioned, Dave, they've killed like thousands of people. I mean, tons of people, right? And Walker killed one person in the heat of the moment, the heat of rage, and they broke his arm. Falcon wouldn't even fight the flag smasher chick. I mean, that's pathetic. That's bad writing. That's just straight up bad writing. Doesn't make any sense.
Well, and that at the end of the day, that's going to be my ultimate criticism with this show, is that it violates what I think is sort of the verisimilitude, the reality of what's happening in the MCU. And that's kind of what you're bringing up too, Eric. Well, it's exactly what you're bringing up. It's just this concept that, within the confines of what's happening in the Marvel Universe, there are very interesting things to discuss that are literally ramifications of things that have actually happened in the movies. And while they do kind of sort of address it, at the same point, they don't come at it in a manner in which it's kind of more clear. It's kind of unclear. And it feels like that there are other external factors that are driving the narrative instead of the parameters of what's actually occurred and what might actually be the outcome of those events. You know, and that's the thing too. I mean, depending upon how they wanted to tackle these topics or address these topics, there's a lot of different ways to approach this material that still could have all worked, but been in universe, you know, as opposed to what we got, which to me, I found it all at the end of the day to just be at times a bit, well, not just a bit, it's very disjointed. And I just honestly, like I said, I just didn't, you know, at the end of the day, it was okay. I didn't hate it. But I'm going to tell you right now, in my opinion, Wanda Vision is a far superior show because of the fact that at least Wanda Vision does a better job of dealing with things that are in universe, right? And I feel like Falcon and the Winter Soldier it just doesn't do as well a job. And then let me just throw this out there because we're about that 1 hour mark. So here's my ultimate prognosis for where I am with the MCU right now. Okay. I'm probably going to sit Loki out. Not for a political reason or anything like that. That's got nothing to do with that. I'm just going to sit Loki out because I just didn't like how they handled the material in Falcon the Winter Soldier. If I hear from other people that Loki's really good and you should check it out, I might give it a shot. But as it currently sits, I could read the tea leaves, and I'm not sure if Loki's going to be for me now. And on the additional side to that too, I want to see Black Widow. I have been waiting for Black Widow. I am going to go see Black Widow in the theaters whenever Black Widow finally hits. So I'm excited about that. I want to go see that. And I'm very excited about Moon Knight. I'm going to watch Moon Knight irregardless. And I'm going to hope that it's good. Everything else is a wait and see right now, everybody. Everything else is going to be a wait and see. Because I'm not just going to jump in and just expect it to be good anymore, because I feel like that it's so weird to me, because it seemed like they really understood this material, and between a couple of weird, you know, missteps, pretty bad missteps in my opinion, in this show, I literally am starting to wonder, I don't know if you guys really understand this material at all. Like, you understand it's supposed to be melodrama, and you understand there's supposed to be action. But other than that, I'm beginning to wonder if you people understand, and this sounds bad, but I just beginning to wonder if the people who are creating the shows really understand the material in the way that those of us who grew up reading these comic books understand it. And I understand that people may want to insult me or say whatever. That's fine. Go right ahead. The difference between me and the people who are working on the show is the fact that I've not only self-published comic books, I've actually created comic books, and I've worked in this sphere. You know, like I've done stuff at Marvel, I've done stuff at DC. Like I understand the minutiae of what happens in a collaborative environment, you know, when you're trying to create a story. But I don't feel like at the end of the day that they were trying to really tell a story. I think telling a story was something they felt like they needed to do, but I felt like they had something else they felt like they needed to do that was more important. And then they went, well, we got to change this because maybe that's too topical and people are not going to know how to react to that because of where the world was when they started doing this. So I feel like it damaged this show. I feel like whatever they were trying to say, they were being too heavy-handed. And at the end of the day, I feel like it damaged this show. And I hope that they learn from this, because, you know, I don't remember feeling this way watching Mandalorian as I felt watching Falcon the Winter Soldier. By this point in Mandalorian, I was so excited because Luke Skywalker had returned, and we knew the kid was going to be safe, at least in the short term. And it was exciting and thrilling. And I was just loving being back in the world of Star Wars. And I'm excited for the next season of Mandalorian. And with this, I'm going to sit Loki out. That's where we are. For me, personally, my opinion, I'm sitting it out because I don't know if I can trust them to tell an interesting Loki story right now. I just don't. That's where I'm at. What about you, Eric?
Well, it's like Robert says, they're lost. They're lost. And that's how I feel about the entire Disney Corporation right now. It goes beyond the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It does go into Star Wars. I do have a lot of issues with what's going on at Lucasfilm. But again, Lucasfilm is part of Disney. And, you know, Dave and I have had these discussions behind the scenes. And we are taking this show in a slightly different direction. We're going to change formats. We're going to change days. We're talking days. We're not just going to be doing one show a week. But you know what? I want to get away from new media. Just like I'm sick of new Trek. I will never go back to Paramount. You know, it's kind of funny. I will not go back to Paramount Plus. Technically, I guess I never was. But it's the same thing as CBS All Access. There's a lot of agenda in these corporations, and more, whether it's, you know, new Trek, new Star Wars, new MCU now, whatever phase this is, I am just not on board with the agenda. And I do not want to be promoting this stuff. I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to be angry because I've got better things to do than be angry at a stupid TV show. There's a lot going on in the world that's much more worthy of my consideration and my time than this stuff. And to be preached to by some screenwriter in Hollywood, yeah, F you, man. Not going to happen. Not with this guy, okay? Because I know what I've done in my life, and I can compare it to yours. And yeah, you're not going to be preaching to me. That's just not going to happen. There may be a few exceptions out there, you know, that back in the day, a lot of these screenwriters had amazing backgrounds. Gene Roddenberry, one of my heroes, he's a World War II vet, and he was a police officer, you know, legit guy, you know. James Doohan was a legit war hero on D-Day, you know what I mean? But a lot of these guys today and gals, they've never done shit. They went to film school. They've been in that sort of privileged little bubble their entire life. They don't base their writings off of what the actual creators base their stuff on. Instead, they rip off those creators that base their stuff on other things. If you don't know what I'm talking about, The Force Awakens, a great example of that. It's all over the place. And to me, it even goes beyond the MCU. I just do not want to be promoting this garbage anymore and this agenda anymore. A lot of the old stuff I still like, you know, and that's one thing that Disney Plus has going for it. There's a lot of legacy content on there. And I'd rather be promoting the legacy content that I really enjoy, that I really like, and trying to share that fandom with other people than constantly getting into this new crap that has this agenda stuff written all over it. I just don't really want it. So I'm even beyond just with the MCU. I'm like with all this new corporate crap. I'm much more into legacy stuff. This is the Retro Rogues after all, right? I am a retro rogue. So why am I focusing on all this stuff?
Well, and along those lines, I think we could just go ahead and finish our talk here on Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm going to chalk this up kind of like WandaVision at the end of the day. I'm going to tell you right now, I like WandaVision a lot better, but this just feels like another missed opportunity. There was a lot of great premise. There was some truly compelling drama at times and some really interesting ideas and concepts. And then when it gets right down to the execution, it's like I don't know, it felt like they were more concerned about a message than telling a compelling story at the end of the day. And, for those people who are attached to that message and this was meaningful to them, hey, I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Everyone can have a different opinion, about this stuff. That's great. But for me, at the end of the day, like I said, I'm just going to sit out Loki. That's where I'm at. I'm going to sit out Loki because I don't want to invest this much time into something and at the end of the day just be left scratching my head. The movies do a great job with this material, and I've really enjoyed all the movies and not had any issues with it. And like I said, all this did was make me appreciate Iron Man 2 more and appreciate Thor: The Dark World more. So if that was your goal, good job. You did that at least. So yeah. So let's talk about unless you have anything else you want to add, Eric. I think we should just go ahead and move on and talk about what's going to be happening here with the show.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. We definitely have a lot that we're trying to do right now. So,
okay, so for the Retro Rogues Live here moving forward, Eric and I had a business meeting last week, and we got into the nitty gritty. We're looking at the numbers and seeing kind of where everything stands. And to make a long story short, based on what we're seeing with the viewing trends and everything, number one, it does feel like that the people who enjoy our show, the people who enjoy the content that we're producing, they're definitely interested in more retro content, right? More legacy content, as Eric said earlier. There's definitely an interest more in that than the kind of content that we've been covering. And if you look at our numbers in terms of the show, like our viewership numbers, it's pretty clear we should not be talking about Falcon the Winter Soldier. We should be talking about other things. So like our namesake, Retro Rogues Live, like that's the name of our show, we are going to be going back and covering more legacy content, more retro content. And what we're discussing at the moment, what we're talking about is actually going from one show a week actually to two, and having those two shows be more like about 30 to 45 minutes, maybe an hour if people really want to talk about the topic. We're still in negotiations about negotiations. We're still talking amongst ourselves. It's not really like negotiations. We're still talking amongst ourselves about the actual final format of what these shows are going to be, but we know for sure right now that we're going to continue to do the Collector's Corner type content, and we're going to continue to do the retro reviews, but they'll be probably on two separate days. And then along with those, and because we'll be doing two different days, and we can be a little bit more topical in terms of the news cycle, whether you want to talk about pop culture news, whether you want to talk about streaming wars, we're going to have those as components of those as well. So that's going to be sort of the general idea, the general plan moving forward. And like I said, a lot of this is motivated by the fact that we did not like Falcon and Winter Soldier very much. I don't think I dislike this as much as I dislike Picard. I think Picard is still the gold standard as far as stuff I just don't ever want to watch again. But these companies are doing a really great job of running me off. That's about where I'm at. So I don't understand how you screw this stuff up when they do such a good job with the movies. But, man, they just really I don't know. And it's funny because I know some people out there probably love this, but I really hated it. But we're hoping for this new format to be something kind of fun. So what do you... Yeah, chime in, Eric, because that's kind of what we discussed. But how are you feeling about this idea of moving to this new format?
Well, I think the bottom line is it's going to help us to grow the show, to grow the channels. That's really what we want. Is we do want to make sure that we're getting some engagement. We don't want to just necessarily be talking to ourselves. Although, just before we went on the air, I was talking to Dave that when we first talked about doing this. And Dave had already been doing this with other people. But when he first approached me about, doing a show and all that, the bottom line that I came at it was, hey, Dave and I would talk anyway. Dave and I are friends. And we talk about this stuff anyway, because we talk about the stuff we like, the stuff that we enjoy. And, bottom line is we're into a lot of genre entertainment, sci-fi, fantasy, comic book movies, superhero movies, whatever you want to call them, that kind of stuff. That's what we like. That's what we enjoy. And we're going to talk about it anyway. We're going to talk about it amongst ourselves. But I think what happened is we tried, in trying to be more topical and in trying to expand the channel, we kind of lost sight of that a little bit. That ultimately we want to be talking about stuff that we enjoy. Now, I grant you, there's always that problem sometimes when you're doing something new, you ultimately don't know if you're going to like it or not. I mean, that's just part of the it's just part of the it's just innate. It's just innate in doing that. And if you review something new, you may or may not like it. That's just the bottom line. But if you go back to the stuff that you always loved, well, you can't go wrong, because then you're gonna you like it. And even in there could be some interesting stuff, because there's stuff that I haven't seen in years that would be interesting to revisit, and it would be interesting to see, well, I love that as a kid. Do I still like that now? You know? And I know that's a big aspect of a lot of what you did with the retro reviews that you were doing, Dave, was a big aspect of it. Was like, hey, you know, that was even the standard format that we had that you had developed with other people. Was like, we started out with like, hey, how do you remember hearing about this back in the day? You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
And then it's like, you know, how did you feel about it back then when you first saw it? Yeah. And then of course it would be the last part would be, well, how do you feel about it now? You know?
Right.
And we kind of got away from that. And it's like that's actually, I think, the format that I think, for at least for us, works the best, you know? So, and the other thing is, you know, we've talked about it too, is with a lot of the modern stuff, the fact of the matter is, since everybody's talking about that stuff anyway, you get buried, you know, you absolutely get buried. And if you're a small channel and you're trying to establish yourself, you get buried with much larger entities, much larger channels that are talking about the same thing. And a lot of them, they talk about this stuff like almost immediately when it comes out. And that's just not something that's feasible for Dave and I to do. So, you know, we're not those guys. But if we do, you know, if we add another show during the week, that might allow us, at least in the news segments, to be a little bit more topical, because we can still always talk about something, you know, if let's say, just say for instance, you know, Dave was saying he doesn't want to watch, he doesn't plan on watching Loki. Well, let's just say I do. And then I just talk about it, you know, casually, you know, after a review or after we do a collector's corner segment, you know, and say, hey, I've been watching Loki and this is what I'm kind of thinking so far, you know. We can still have those discussions. We can do whatever we want. It's our show, you know, but it's all about the focus. And definitely when we looked at the numbers and everything like that, it doesn't make any sense for half of our show, and basically that means half of our content, to be on something that's, quote, topical, and then we get really no interest in it. You know, we get no engagement on it or anything like that, or very minimal, very, very minimal. And there is another dynamic here that we've tried to talk about, which is that we do kind of have to look at the live experience differently than when we make a clip and we put it out on YouTube. Those really are two different audiences. And there isn't like necessarily a lot of crossover between the two. Typically, we used to do a lot better as far as the live stuff on Facebook than we ever did on YouTube. But even that has kind of like, we've had some issues there as well. But definitely there's something to be said between a live audience and then the people that just start watching your videos as they become viral. And it's like a completely different audience. And we want to see if we can try to serve both of them and find audiences with both. So like, you know, for instance, if we're doing two shows, maybe one will do really well with the live stuff, and then maybe the other one will feed some of those clips and some of that YouTube stuff a little bit better. You never know. We got to try different things, right? If you keep doing the same thing, you know, expecting different results, that's the definition of insanity, right, Dave? So
yeah, that's true. And you know, and also too, I better liked the idea, and I know it was way more fun for me too when we were talking about things, you know, doing the retro reviews and talking about something that we liked. You know what I mean? You know, there was a couple times we did a retro review like Split Second. You know, I know that you were okay with Split Second, but you didn't like Split Second, and I love that movie. So,
well, the other thing though that was nice, but you know what was nice about Split Second was it was something that you really liked and that you were really into, and then you were like, hey, let's check. Why don't you check this out? You know, so that's cool too. You know what I mean? Because we kind of know what we're dealing with. Like in that case, I'm a little bit of the wild card. But you're a known quantity in that equation. You already know you like it and all that kind of stuff. So we kind of know where we're going. Again, it's just inherent when you're doing new stuff, you really don't know how you're going to react. So you have no idea if you're going to like it or not, or if anybody's going to like it. You know, Picard was difficult. Picard was difficult for both of us. There's just no doubt about it, because we really committed to it, and we really were getting a lot of engagement on the live show. We really didn't do well as far as like YouTube and the reviews and, you know, the clips and things like that. None of that stuff ever went viral, but we had a robust live show when we were doing Picard, but it was really difficult because basically, and it wasn't just us. It was funny because even the Rogues Gallery was basically like a hate fest. People were just coming here basically just to bitch about Picard. That's the reason that they were coming here. And I don't want to be that show. You know what I mean? I really, there's plenty of other people that do that very well. I mean, I'll just say it. Most of the Fandom Menace, that's their bread and butter. They talk about things they don't like. I don't understand that, but they've done well. They've done very well. A lot of them have done very well. But I don't want to be that. You know, that's not what I want. I would rather talk about things that I enjoy or I want to recommend to you, things that I think are cool. And the other thing is, we've talked about this, is we do want to try to get into more indie stuff, like more of those Kickstarters and Indiegogos, and see what people are doing there. You know, because I know there's a lot of stuff going on with people doing comics, people doing video games, people doing all sorts of stuff on Kickstarter and independent stuff. And, you know, I would love to support more of that stuff than the big corporate stuff, especially the new stuff. The legacy stuff, there's lots of legacy stuff I enjoy, but when it comes to the new stuff, I'm just not on board.
Well, and that's kind of that's going to be another kind of like a point of the focus, hopefully moving forward, is you know, also to trying to find interesting, you know, independent projects, you know what I mean, and highlight those more and talk about them more. And you know, at the end of the day, you know, trying to be more positive and uplifting and point people to things that they might like, instead of necessarily, you know, talking about what you didn't like about something. Because I feel like, while Falcon and Winter Soldier is not as bad as Picard, it felt kind of like that at one point. You know, it's like, well, I'm watching this because it said we're gonna review it. You know what I mean? But I wasn't really watching it necessarily because I was loving it anymore. Like, I was excited for the finale because I was curious to see what they were going to do, because I thought we'd at least get some fun action sequences, and I was genuinely expecting, for the very least, for War Machine to show up. So, you know, when all this stuff kind of went down, I was just kind of really left scratching my head. And it's weird too, because a lot of the speculation surrounding these shows is what's driving a lot of what's happening on the collector's side with the comic books. And it's so weird because a lot of these things that people are touting, man, none of this stuff is happening. Like, none of it's happening. You know, everybody keeps thinking it's like, oh, they're gonna tease Thunderbolts here, and they're gonna do this, and they're gonna do that. And it's like, it's none of that stuff is in this stuff. None of it at all. And that's the thing that's really frustrating, even from a collector's corner standpoint for me. So I picked some stuff that I thought was kind of like, you know, tried and true, interesting. You know, if you're a collector, there's a little bit of speculation in it, but at the end of the day, this stuff is not going to be driven as much by, you know, the MCU stuff. I mean, it will be to an extent. But I'm going to, like, even in the collector's corner, I'm going to try to find a different point of focus moving forward, because I just feel like that, I just feel like this is leading nowhere, you know, and to me, it feels almost, weirdly enough, disingenuous, because, you know, like, for example, I remembered with the Wanda Vision finale, I said, well, we know War Machine's going to be showing up in these shows. So I touted War Machine's second appearance, right, in one of our collector corner recommendations. And then, lo and behold, you know, Rhodes, Rhodey was in one episode, but War Machine technically never showed up. We've now had what, 16 Disney Plus Marvel MCU shows, and War Machine hasn't even shown up. Like, you know, just Rhodey's been on screen one time, 16 episodes, and it's just like, wow, okay. So I'm wondering at some point that people are going to realize that, you know, what they're doing. And I wonder whether there's going to be backlash on the collector side. You know, people are going to go, well, I don't know why I'm picking up all these books. None of these characters are showing up. None of this stuff is actually happening. So I don't know.
It is interesting to see how that works. And that, by the way, that is actually a way that we can sort of tie in sometimes some of the more recent things, because it does affect the market. There's no doubt about it. It does affect the collector's market when these shows come out, and YouTubers affect it. When people start talking rumors and basically inventing stuff. I mean, let's face it. There's a lot of disingenuous YouTubers out there that make up stuff. They just straight up make up stuff and pretend that they have insider knowledge when they don't. And they're good. They're good at pretending that they know what they're talking about. And God bless them. They have big channels, you know, with big followings and things like that. And they will actually affect the market. with some of their speculation, because they talk about these characters. Oh yeah, this character is going to show up, and that actually does affect the market. It's really interesting to see that sometimes.
Well, and it's interesting because some of the books that we were recommending early on, and even some of the ones we've been recommending here lately, I do still feel like that these are interesting long term. You know what I mean? Kind of. I guess we'll just segue into Collector's Corner. Let's just go ahead and do that.
Sorry,
yeah.
I meant to be a little bit more subtle. I meant to have it in the background.
But I do feel like that a lot of the stuff that we've recommended still are interesting. From a speculation standpoint. From a collector standpoint, I try to recommend things that you definitely can't go wrong with. But there is still some room for these books to kind of play out over time. But it's just kind of a weird thing. I don't, for example, when we recommended the West Coast Avengers, which was the first, White Vision, Spectral Vision, whatever you want to call him. When we recommended that, we were just talking about that within the context of the show. But the Collector's Corner didn't exist yet. But if you'd picked that book up back then, you got it relatively inexpensively, and it did go up like a nice little amount. And the majority of the value has actually held, which is pretty good, right? That I don't think that West Coast Avengers book is going to be in a dollar bin probably ever again, which is cool, right? But it just gets into this weird nebulous region where like there's a lot of books that are swirling around rumors that people can't even really afford to pick up anymore. And that's all it is. It's all based off of speculation and rumor, because so far these shows haven't shown us any of that stuff. Like, for example, I've been shocked that we haven't seen General Thunderbolt Ross once out of 16 episodes. Not once. So a lot of this stuff just really has to kind of scratch in my head. So, I mean, maybe what happened and them having to shuffle the release schedule around, caused a lot of problems. I don't know. But as far as I can tell right now, I feel like that when I make recommendations, I need to be more mindful of kind of more long-term kind of stuff. So that's kind of where I'm going to try to focus moving forward. We'll still hit a few things here or there if it's terribly relevant, but I think I'm going to focus on it more from a collector's standpoint, more collector, maybe a little less speculation, but still delving into that too. So.
Gotcha.
All right.
Jane's in the house, just checking in.
Hi, Mom. Let's go ahead and just get into Collector's Corner if that's okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Very cool. All right. So in the Collector's Corner, we like to talk about fun things that people like to collect. Things like comic books, trading cards, action figures, statues. I know some people, mini comics, whatever it is. All these fun things we like to collect. That's what we like to talk about here in the Collector's Corner. Sometimes from a speculation standpoint, sometimes just from a collector's standpoint. At the very least, we hope it's something that you will find worthy of discussion. That's what we like to talk about here in the Collector's Corner. All right, so for tonight's episode, I've got 3 new picks here on the comic book side. I like these all for different reasons. And again, I did look at these from a different standpoint. There's some speculation here, but there's also kind of just some general interest here too. All right, so our big speculation book for this installment is actually probably going to be Morbius #1. Obviously, Morbius, a lot of his early appearances, they've been skyrocketing in value. A lot of those are kind of outside of the realm. You say, well, what do you mean by realm, Dave? What I mean is that typically in the Collector's Corner, we like to focus on things that you could pick up for $20, sometimes less than $20. That way, it's sort of like if you purchase something, you hold it long term, it goes up in value. Yay! But if you purchase it, it doesn't necessarily go up in value. You won't, feel bad because it's not like you bought a book that I recommended for several $100s and you're stuck with it. So the idea here is to pick up stuff, hold on to it. Maybe something might happen with it down the road. At the very least, hope it's something worthy and fun to have in the collection. So this is Morbius #1. This is from 1992. We have the Morbius movie coming out from Sony, obviously in association with Marvel. And I feel like that of all the Morbius books, this is good. This is the one that's still kind of within range. It's been fluctuating kind of wildly, kind of here and there, but I noticed there's still quite a few places, like on Mercari and stuff like that, where you can get this book for $20 or less. A lot of the other books have gone up pretty high. One of the ones I've been trying and pick up a copy of for myself was it Journey into Fear or something like that? I think I'm saying that wrong. Anyhow, it's the first Morbius and Blade book, which at one point was within range and is now way out of range. So anyhow, this is going to be our speculation play for this evening. Morbius #1, a fun book nonetheless, but obviously because of the Sony film and the MCU connection, this is going to be your obvious speculation here is going to be Morbius #1. The next two books here.
What's Morbius #1? What have you seen the range for that right now?
Well, it depends. I've seen quite a few places on Mercari where you could get it for like $9 upwards to $15. If you buy it from the wrong seller, I mean, they'll say, oh, this is, if you get it graded, it's a 9.8. It's going to set you back, $40 probably. You know what I mean? But
Right.
if you kind of shop around, you can pick up a decent copy of this, for, like I said, between $9 and $15 as of this episode's, live show. After the show, might go up. I don't know. But just of all the different Morbius books, like obviously his first, second appearance, forget about it. First solo story, you can forget about that too. There's also a early story where it's the Blade's first solo story outside of Tomb of Dracula, where he just happens to fight Morbius, and that's the one where I'm trying to name of that book. It's like Journey into Fear or something like that. That book is already out of range, and it skyrocketed pretty quick. So it's funny because I don't recommend more Blade books on the Collector's Corner because they're going up pretty high. People are really excited about Blade. I'm excited about Blade too. But anyhow, between $9 to $15, like I said, there's still active listings like on Mercari and stuff like that where you can pick up relatively inexpensively. So that's the general range for that one. Now on the other two recommendations here for this evening, what I've got here that I've picked, I'm actually getting on the Mercari app just to make sure. Okay. Yeah, here's one for $11. There's one for $9. So yeah, you can pick it up pretty inexpensively. All right, so our second one I'm recommending for this evening is going to be Uncanny X-Men 222. This is continuing to follow along my logic that, obviously the X-Men are going to come to the MCU. If Wolverine comes along with them, they don't try and sit Wolverine out, which would be the stupidest thing they could do. I've been highlighting really important, key, fun Wolverine stories, primarily trying to stick within Uncanny X-Men, but trying to find interesting picks. So this one is really kind of cool. This is a big classic battle with the Marauders, and another round of Saber Tooth versus Wolverine, as you can clearly tell here by the cover. This is pretty early. I think this is like the third time that these two had fought. So this is, again, kind of interesting Wolverine history, obviously X-Men history, Saber Tooth history. These are, one of your most popular villains and one of your most popular heroes that I do think once they come to the MCU, something interesting might happen with this book down the road. At the very least, it's a fun, cool X-Men book to have in your collection, a fun Wolverine book to have in your collection if you're a Wolverine fan. This book, you can pick this one up pretty cheap. I mean, if you buy it in a lot with other X-Men books, I mean, you're probably only going to pay like a couple dollars for this book. And obviously, we're not talking about graded. We're talking about raw. All these books, when I recommend them, I'm talking about the raw books, not graded CGC books. But, like I said, $5 to $10 I saw this one for. Relatively inexpensive, but fun. Now, the last one for this evening, I feel like this one over time could be a really interesting book to hold on to. This is Giant Size Invaders. And I totally missed the date on this. I think it was, let me look it up. I thought it was like around 1972. Let me double check that. So giant size invaders. Let's see here. I'm gonna try and my apologies. Usually I have the dates on the books, and I totally dropped the date off of this book. So here's what I like about Giant Size Invaders number one. Number one, you can pick the book up relatively inexpensively. It ranges anywhere from, $10, $15, $20. Some places, it can go as high as $40. But typically, mid-grade copy, is going to run you about $20. Giant Size Invaders, this is from 1975. My bad, 1975. What's interesting about this one is it has, I think this is technically probably the third appearance of the Invaders, and the Invaders are the superheroes from World War II that fought during World War II. So you have Captain America teaming up with Submariner. We got Bucky on here. We've got the original Human Torch, which was a robot, and we have his sidekick Toro. This is, in terms of the Marvel comic book universe, a classic, heroic team, but they primarily were active during World War II. And what's interesting about this one is we get a reprint of Namor's, the Submariner's origin in the back. And what's interesting about this one too is when you start looking at key issues for Namor the Submariner, most of those books are like way out of pocket. Like, they're going to set you back a good little bit. This is actually considered an interesting key comic book actually for Namor the Submariner. But again, like I said, if you time it right, you can pick up a decent copy for $10 to $20. So if you're a Namor the Submariner fan, or you're interested to pick up some Namor Submariner books, this is an interesting one to pick up to have in your collection. And like I said, it's not going to set you back too much, so you can get this one, like I said, anywhere from $10 upwards to $40. But most of the ones I see online, they range from about $10 upwards to about $20.
Very cool.
Yeah, and that's gonna be all my picks for the Collector's Corner tonight. And then we didn't talk about this, but our next episode's gonna be another regular episode like we've done. It'll be Wednesday. It'll be on the 2-hour mark like we have been doing. But possibly after that, that's when the switchover for the show might be happening. But we'll say more about that next week. But again, like I said, the Collector's Corner, this is one of those segments that's going to move forward. So this might end up becoming like its own, own show, which would be kind of cool.
Exactly. Yeah. So we can kind of focus more on different things and different aspects of collecting. So yeah, I think that'll be fun. Did I lose you there, Dave?
No, I was saying, do you have anything for this week's installment of the Collector's Corner?
No, I didn't really have anything. I didn't really have any speculative stuff or anything like that this time. I'll keep my eyes open. I try to look more for action figure type stuff, and
right.
I just haven't really come across anything lately.
No, I hear you. It's all good. All right, very cool. Well, let's just go ahead and go into pop culture then, if that's okay.
Yeah, that sounds good. Let me get the banner up for pop culture news.
All right, so here in the pop culture news segment, I'd like to talk about anything that's happened in the world of pop culture news. Usually it's something that piques Eric's interest or it piques my interest. At the very least, we hope it's something you will find worthy of a discussion. And that's what we like to talk about here in the pop culture news. I don't have anything for pop culture news this week, but we're going to have some fun stuff actually hopefully for next week. I've been working on new t-shirt designs and stuff for Kirby Tees to talk about here on the show. That's been taking up a lot of my time. But what do you have for pop culture news, Eric?
Well, I had my I tweeted about this, so I got to make sure that I address this at least a little bit. So I got this from Bounding Into Comics. I'd actually seen some stuff about this on Twitter before, but this was the first actual article I read about this. So this is the title of the headline. This is from John F. Trent, and it is dated from today. It says, Elizabeth Banks is creating an adult sequel series for the Flintstones. It already sounds terrible. So it says Elizabeth Banks, the director of the failed Charlie's Angels reboot, who blamed men for the film's failure, is apparently working on an adult theme sequel series to the Hanna-Barbera classic, The Flintstones. So a Banks adult theme sequel series is being produced by Fox. And says Banks is not only producing the series, but she will be voicing a 20-something Pebbles Flintstone. The press release from Fox details the show, quote, catches up with the Flintstone family 2 decades after the original, with Fred on the brink of retirement and 20-something Pebbles embarking on her own career. It adds, as the Stone Age gives way to a shiny and enlightened new Bronze Age, the residents of Bedrock will find this evolution harder than a swing from Bam Bam's club. It says the show is being produced by both Warner Brothers Animation and Fox Entertainment. And it says Banks and Max Handelman are executive producing through Brownstone Productions. They are joined by Donna Schindler and Lindsay Kearns, who will be co-executive producers. It says Kearns is also writing the pilot script for the show. Her credits include Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous, where she was a staff writer. She also wrote 2 episodes of the DC Superhero Girls and has written a number of episodes for Cleopatra in Space. So what do you think, Dave? Do you think that Valiant of Comics is being too harsh, or are you all on board with this? You think this is a great idea?
You know, if I hear it's good, I might check it out, but on the surface, I'm going to pass.
The enlightened Bronze Age really kind of tells me this is going to be agenda crap. This is going to be complete agenda bullshit. I don't understand, even from an aesthetic standpoint, how that even works. I mean, a part of the fun of the Flintstones, right, is that, yes, it's quote unquote the Stone Age and they're cavemen or whatever, but it's ridiculous, right? Because they have equivalents of everything we have here. They just have it like in a weird way, right? Like they have cars, but they literally use their feet to move the cars, like almost like, you know, like a little kid car, right? Things like that. You know, they have telephones, and it's like literally like a, you know, like an animal going between them or something like that. You know, they have all those kind of crazy things, right? That don't really make any sense in the real world, but it's animation and it's silly and it's fun, so it works. So now it's supposed to be the Bronze Age, right? Where the Bronze Age in real life, they didn't even have any of the things that they have in the Flintstones, right? So it's like, to me, it would be like going backwards. So I'm sitting there like just trying to picture that in my mind. Like, what do they intend? But I think what the real intention is, it's that whole enlightened age that now, you know, Fred's ways are no good. And I don't know, who wants to see a retired Fred? Do you want to see a retired Fred? I mean, no, I don't. I mean, I can't speak for other people, but I don't. It's kind of funny because, you know, I think you started talking about this off the air, and I think you were going to go there, and I don't know if you had planned to or not, but it felt like you were. They'd already did this, didn't they? There was a Bam Bam and Pebbles show. In fact, I think I have a DVD of it that I bought for my kids. Yeah, they had a show a while back, and like I remember watching it as a kid, where they did one where they were teenagers, and I think they did another one too, where they were even much older. So it's not like this is a totally brand new idea, but at the you know. Like I said, I don't know. I just don't know about this. It's like, I mean, I know I've seen a few people who are excited about it, and hey, obviously this is for you, because I can tell you right now on the surface of it, I don't think this is for me. You know, and it's so funny too, because I remember back in the day when I was an art student in college, and you know, back in the days when, you know, companies, they would print up, you know, little flyers and circulars. They were advertising for people to work on projects and stuff, or how to pitch stuff. And someone had come out to the college and given a talk about, you know, working in animation and actually pitching to Hanna-Barbera at that time. And one of the things that's interesting about the Hanna-Barbera thing is they very clearly, emphatically said, do not pitch us anything remotely like the Flintstones, because we already have that.
and they wouldn't even have heard this pitch, 20 years ago. Like they wouldn't even have let you come in trying to pitch this idea at Hanna-Barbera. It would have been persona non grata from the jump because it meant you didn't have any original ideas.
Well, I think the thing here is that this is not going to be anything like the Flintstones. That's the irony of it. I don't think this is going to be anything like the Flintstones. I always kind of feel like what is Hollywood thinking? Like so often with a lot of these remakes, reboots, all this BS that they do, it seems like they have no idea why people actually liked this show. I can tell you right off the bat, they didn't like this show because of Pebbles or Bam Bam. Pebbles and Bam Bam were very minor characters, right? They were babies, right? So, in fact, they weren't even babies when the show first started. That was something that happened later, right? And usually people say that's when a show jumps the shark, is when they introduce a little kid, right? They introduce a new little kid. That's a very typical jumping the shark point of a series because they're running out of ideas. So they say, hey, let's have a kid, right? And then we can add another element to the show. But people like the Flintstones because of Fred, Barney, Betty, and Wilma, right? And there's some minor characters and things like that I'm sure people like, but that's the core of the show. It's not Pebbles and Bam Bam, right? Now, and as we just mentioned, they did do a Pebbles and Bam Bam show, and nobody remembers it. It is the Flintstones is iconic because it was basically like the first primetime cartoon, right? It's the first primetime animated show. It paved the way for everybody that came later. You like any primetime animated, you have the Flintstones to thank for it. They're the ones who paved the way for that. It was a family-friendly show. It was definitely meant for the family to watch together. That's why there's so many cameos in it. There are constant cameos in the original Flintstones of major actors from that era. And and they had the little gag where they always put like Stone by their name, right? So they would have their name, but it would be like Smith Stone or something like that, right? So it was a fun show. It was family friendly. It definitely had its sort of core elements, and this is not going to be that show. That's what I can tell you wholeheartedly. This is not going to be that show. So it's like, why do it? But it is what it is. I still don't understand so many of these new shows that come out that use these old names. Like, I've tried to watch like an episode of something like the new Hawaii Five-0 or Magnum or something like that. And I'm like, what's the point of this other than just ripping off the name? And I guess the same sort of basic premise. This is a totally different show. So it seems to me more and more what Hollywood does is they just take the name, because they know the name is recognizable by people. People still know the name. And then they just run it into the ground. And they just absolutely run it into the ground and destroy the franchise. I don't understand it. I really don't. I do not have high hopes for this show. I don't think it's going to be the Flintstones. I think it's going to be agenda driven, and it's going to be very different. And I do not want to see a retired Fred Flintstone. I don't get that. I don't think that's going to be any fun.
Yeah, I don't. Like I said, I don't know who this is for, but I can just tell you right now, this is definitely not for me. So, those of you who are into this, I'm happy for you, but unless I hear this is the greatest thing since sliced cheese, I'm just not interested. Like I said, I've just gotten to the point where I am no longer going to fight this. I'm just going to be honest, and it's pretty obvious this is not for me. So there you go. It's written for somebody else, not me. So there you go.
Yeah, I hear that. I definitely hear that. You said that you didn't really have anything for pop culture news?
No, I don't, because I knew we were going to talk about the changes for the format of the show, kind of, trying to get people prepared for that. And like I said, actually one of my pop culture news articles was that whole thing with Wyatt Russell that I talked about during our review of Falcon and Winter Soldier. So that was actually one of the things so.
Well, I want to talk briefly about something positive related to pop culture news. I had seen this, and I know there's a lot of people that have been talking about this and actually been very clickbaitish about it, but I'm just going to go straight to the story. So you might have heard people saying that Gina Carano has been uncanceled and acting like there's this big thing going on. And of course, when people hear that, of course, I'm sure what they're thinking is that that Cara Dune is back, right? You hear something like Gina Carano's uncanceled, I think that's what you think. And I think it's very clickbait-ish when people do that. But here's the real story. So there's a show called Running Wild, and it's on National Geographic, okay, which is also owned by Disney, right? So what the flap is that Gina Carano had actually filmed an episode of this while she was still in the good graces of Lucasfilm. Are you aware of this story, Dave?
Yeah, I am just tangentially. I mean, I'd heard a little bit about it, but I haven't read any of the news articles about it. But yeah, I'd heard a little bit about it.
Yeah, I'm not even going with the news articles. I'm going straight out of Gina's mouth, if you will, straight out of her tweet. Okay. And actually, also the host of the show. This is actually his tweet. Bear Grylls. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Sorry, I do not watch Running Wild, so I don't know anything about the show other than the basic premise that he takes celebrities to these crazy places and they go do stuff. They run wild, apparently. And so I'm going to emphasize Gina Carano's tweet. So it says, want to hear something cool? Just so happens you'll be able to see my Barry Grylls, again, I don't know how to pronounce his name, episode on Nat Geo after all. Bear is a real one. I'm so glad you're going to get to see it. My heart is so full. Airs on Nat Geo May 10th at 9 p.m. Hashtag never give up. So the story behind this story is that basically when they first announced the new season of this specific program and they said what episodes we were going to have and which celebrities we were featuring, there was no Gina Carano, even though she'd already filmed the episode. Again, she filmed the episode while she was still under the good graces of Disney and Lucasfilm, because they're all one big happy family. And I'm sure that's why she was even on the show in the first place. It's because she was on another Disney show. So they wanted there's some cross promotion going on, right? There was talk that before being fired from Lucasfilm, that Gina Carano and Cara Dune were going to get their own show. In fact, I still think they're trying to do damage control on that because I feel like the one of the shows was actually meant to be the Cara Dune show, and now they're going to have to retool it, or they're going to have to recast Cara Dune because there's some speculation about that. But what ultimately happened with this was they basically were saying that this isn't going to happen. And apparently some things happened behind the scenes. And I have to wonder, since the host himself is the one retweeting Gina's post, I have to wonder if maybe he put his foot down as the host of the show and said, this is wrong. She did a great job on the show. We need to show this. This is my show. I could feel like something like that might have happened. I'm not claiming any inside knowledge. I'm just speculating. But ultimately, this story has a happy ending. And Gina is indeed going to be on this show. I'm happy for her. I have said before, I feel that she was treated unfairly. I think the whole cancel culture thing is complete horse crap. It is not, by the way, as someone else has recently said, it is not a consequence culture. Some of you might know what that reference is to. I'm not going to name names right now, but no, we're not dealing with a consequence culture. We're dealing with a cancel culture, and there's a very big difference. So I'm just happy for Gina Carano and glad that she's getting her episode back. And I don't know, maybe I'll be able to check it out. I think some of the Neo Geo shows are on Disney Plus, so maybe I can check it out that way. I'm not sure.
Well, that sounds good. Like I said, I'd heard a little bit about this, but I hadn't heard a lot about it because, like I said, I hadn't followed the news all the way through. You know what I mean? What was going on? And then I think right now it's probably pretty widely known knowledge that I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter anymore. I had been for a long time, but I found Twitter for me to just be frustrating, so I left Twitter, and I just don't typically spend hardly any time there at all anymore. No, yeah, this sounds pretty cool. I'm not a huge fan of all the National Geographic Explore the Wild stuff. That's just not me. Which will sound weird because I am an Eagle Scout, but typically when I get into the wild, I'll just get out into the wild. Literally, I'll just go out and do stuff. So, so for me, I typically don't watch a lot of the shows. My wife watches a lot of them though, and she likes them, and so I'll probably wind up, maybe seeing this particular one because she likes all this kind of stuff. So maybe she's watching one and I see it, I'll sit down like, oh, check it out, it's Gina Carano, and I'll watch it. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't have any interest in this show at all if it wasn't for the fact that she's on it. Straight up.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I'm
So-
interested in it, is because she's in it. And
Yeah.
it's something new from her. And I know I've seen her tweets when it was happening. In fact, I think she had this, she had one of these pictures from the set as her profile pic for a while. So I'm just happy for her. Again, I have no idea what happened behind the scenes, but I'm glad that she at least gets to have the episode that she was on aired, because I think it would be complete horse crap otherwise.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Do you have it? So, do you have anything else for pop culture? Or
No, that was all I had for pop culture.
okay. All right. Let's go ahead and segue over into streaming wars. We're at 1 hour 50 minutes, so getting close to that 2 hour mark. So, here are the streaming wars. Here in our streaming wars segment, we like to talk about anything that's happening, obviously, in the world of streaming wars. You may ask yourself, streaming? What are you talking about? You're talking about fish and stream. We were talking about fish earlier, right? No. It's not that at all. Basically, streaming wars, we're talking about all those fun streaming video services that we enjoy. Things like Disney Plus, like HBO Max, like Hulu. That's what we like to talk about here in the streaming wars segment. Again, I don't have anything for streaming wars because I've been too busy trying to prep other things. But Eric, what do you have for tonight's segment of the streaming wars?
This is really short, but I thought it was interesting because I often talk about like wanting numbers. I recently found a new source of numbers. Give me 1 second because I am having a little bit of difficulty here as far as a technical issue. But I was looking into basically sort of like the ratings for Mortal Kombat. Right, we're going to actually be reviewing Mortal Kombat next week, right? That's the plan right now. We're still going to maintain the old format, and we are going to go ahead and review Mortal Kombat. But I was interested in the streaming numbers, and when I went ahead and decided to go look into that, I found this article. Let me get it up here on the screen. This is from Deadline, and it says Mortal Kombat is a KO for HBO Max, says Samba TV. This article is dated April 26th. It's from Deadline, written by Anthony Delarossando. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. So it says for AT&T CEO John Stankey, it's just another case of a rising tide lifting all boats. So Samba TV is reporting that HBO Max posted its most viewed weekend premiere ever, with New Line's Mortal Kombat clocking at 3.8 million U.S. households. Samba TV pulls HBO Max audiences in terrestrial TV homes. And in this case, those who watch the Simon McQuoid, oh gosh, directed R-rated movie for at least 5 minutes. It says viewership peaked on Friday in 1.7 million households per Samba TV. All in, Samba TV says that Mortal Kombat's first weekend drew more viewers than Warner Brothers' legendary Godzilla vs. Kong did in its first 5 days, which the third-party streaming monitoring service pegged at 3.6 million households. And I did read another article that mentioned it actually outperformed the Snyder Cut, and it also outperformed Wonder Woman 1984. So this is really good news for HBO Max. HBO Max numbers are not easy to get because, for one thing, the Nielsen's don't track HBO Max as a matter of course. I know they made an exception for Wonder Woman 1984, and they did add their numbers later on. But I wasn't aware of Samba TV, and I didn't know Samba TV was doing this. But apparently they are actually looking at some of these viewership numbers, and apparently they're really good for HBO Max right now. They are on the right path. As of right now, with these movies that have been coming out on HBO Max, Godzilla and Mortal Kombat are the two biggest ones, and those are also the two most recent ones. So really good news for HBO Max. It seems like they're on the right track. And this Samba TV, I think, will be a very good resource for us going forward in terms of tracking numbers for the streaming wars. And it also looks like they're a little bit more current than the Nielsen's. The Nielsen's are usually like a month off when it comes to streaming. So this can be actually a really good source for getting kind of like up-to-date streaming numbers.
Oh, that sounds really cool. It's interesting about Mortal Kombat. Yeah, we're going to be hopefully talking about that next week. And I'm excited to see it. I've so far managed to kind of stay away from most of the stuff surrounding it, so that hopefully it'll still be like a fun surprise. So
I already got spoiled a little bit because I decided to watch somebody's review, and this was somebody that I'd watched their Godzilla review, and they didn't do any spoilers. In fact, I thought they did a pretty nice spoiler-free review. And they did do a little bit of spoilers, and I was like, I don't get that. What? I thought you didn't do spoilers, but I guess he does, or I guess he just decides when he does and he doesn't, who knows. But he did give a little bit of a warning, but still, I thought it was kind of weird because he didn't really do any spoilers when he did his Godzilla review. And I did mention before, I do try to kind of stay away from reviews, especially when I'm reviewing something, because for one thing, I don't want to steal somebody else's stuff, their shtick or anything like that. But also, it can lead to an expectation. So, like for instance, with Godzilla, I was seeing a lot of good reviews. And any of you that saw my review, which is still up there on YouTube and actually still up there on the other sites as well, because with the exception of Twitch, they don't go away. At Twitch, they go away. But you can actually see the reviews on Facebook and Twitter as well. But it's up there on YouTube. And yeah, I was a little disappointed with Godzilla, So, but I am hearing good things about Mortal Kombat. We're just going to have to see, But from a business angle, this is definitely good news for AT&T. It does look like they're on the right track, at least right now.
All right. Well, very cool. All right. Do you have anything else for Streaming Wars for this week, or?
Nope, that was it. I just wanted to do that quick story about Samba TV and HBO Max's numbers.
Okay. All right. Very cool. Let's go ahead and go to the outro then. So I want to thank you for hopefully watching or listening to this episode of the Retro Rogues Live. Again, my name is Dave Beatty. I have been one of your hosts. If you're curious to see my current obsession or check out what I'm currently working on, you can head over to KirbyTees.com. That's KIRYBYST. I can't even spell it right now. Anyhow, there it is. KIRBYTS.com. I was counting on you to put that banner up for me to help spell it.
Yeah, I was having trouble finding it. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's my bad. I mean, I know how to spell Kirby Tees, but for some reason, because it's URL, I always blank on a little bit. But you can check out what we got over there at KirbyTees.com. A lot of fun t-shirts, including the Brains Are Magic, which is a new design that's on there still. And also we have the Skeletor, a lot of fun different things, Original Dragon Slayer. We're going to be announcing some more new designs next week. Hope you'll check those out. And also consider purchasing a Retro Rogues Live t-shirt and supporting what we're doing here on the show. We would greatly appreciate your support. All right. Want to thank my great co-host, Mr. Eric Alexander, for providing his unique perspective and opinions, as well as always bringing us these fun news tidbits, such as pop culture and streaming wars. Eric, please tell the folks hopefully watching or listening at home where they can learn more about you on the interwebs.
Well, I'm most active on Twitter. You can find me there at BassGod14, at BASSGOD14. That's also the official Twitch. That's also the official YouTube. So if you make comments on those platforms, more likely than not, I'm the one that you're going to be getting a response from. Although Dave does check in on them from time to time as well. But definitely as far as like direct messages, my DMs are always open on Twitter. And I'm always looking for stuff to review, stuff that you might think would be interesting for us to check out. If you have any leads as far as like collectibles or things like that, especially like toys, trading cards, comic books, things of that nature, send that stuff my way. If you're seeing an interesting trend or you think that there's something that's good to flip or to speculate on, any of that kind of stuff. Any kind of feedback at all, honestly, I'm very open to engaging with folks out there, as long as you're respectful. So nothing wrong there. But I would like to thank the folks that commented. Appreciate Robert coming by because he is my partner. And then I'm going to go ahead and put out Jane's last comment here. She says she always enjoys this show. I will mention that the show is changing formats. So this Wednesday we will have the same format, and we will be reviewing Mortal Kombat. But after that, we may not be doing. We're probably not. Well, we're probably not doing Wednesdays anymore. It'll probably be a Tuesday, Thursday, or a Sunday, Thursday, or Sunday, Tuesday, something like that. So again, Jane says and always enjoys the show, and I hope she comes over with us. And I'll leave her with the last word.